Well, thank you very much, Chairman, and ladies and gentlemen, what a spectacular day. I mean, we're very blessed to be gathered here today, for a very special person that we're here to endorse. And, Richard Wager has been walking around on this earth for 40 years. There's so much that could be said about him. I'm going to tell you some things that I think you should know about him. The first thing is he comes from a wonderful family. And together with his wife, Margaret, they're raising one. And Elizabeth and Scott, two young Americans, Elizabeth age 2, Scott 4 months. And, so first and foremost, Richard is a dedicated husband and father. And like many of us here, like really all of us, he's concerned about his children's future. And I will tell you that Richard has the right skills, attributes, and experiences to represent us in Albany, to help grow the economy, expand opportunities, and to restore fiscal discipline. You look at his background and you can see that he's worked hard. He's worked hard for his education. He understands business and the role of government facilitating it. I think many of you may know that he worked for a period of time for Mayors Giuliani and Bloomberg, and particularly on economic development and on restructuring government so that we can reduce its size, provide better services at less cost to the taxpayer. So education, experience in both business and government, and finally a caring heart. This is a very compassionate soul here. Shortly after graduating from college, he volunteered for the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, and along with that he took a vow of poverty, and he worked for our economically challenged in this country for about 3 years' time. And that's a cause that he continues to fight for to this day. He's involved with affordable housing, both here in the Hudson Valley and then also in Alabama. And I will tell you that in late 2007 and early 2008, when there was a really bad storm in our district, Richard got to know folks in really all over, but also in Delaware County. And there were a couple of families that their houses were basically destroyed, and they were living in the basement of a church. And Richard reached out to church communities and organizations, and they raised money and then helped really put together these homes again for these families. You didn't read about that. You didn't hear about it. Not a lot of fanfare, but I will tell you that this is a guy who cares deeply about his fellow man. He cares deeply about his community and the environment. And so it's with that kind of judgment, that kind of balanced judgment he brings to represent us. And look, I will tell you that over time, over the next couple months, you're going to get to know Rich Wager. But I will tell you that he's a humble man, and especially as politicians go, he has an understated style. But don't be confused, because he is very sincere, he is very dedicated, he is very thoughtful, he is selfless, and he is highly competent. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pleasure that I introduce to you our next Assemblyman from the 103rd Assembly District, Richard Wager. Hoorah!
You're going to do great.
Thank you so much.
You're going to do great.
Thank you very much. Wow, when Chris Gibson says nice things about you like that, I've worked for Giuliani, I've worked for Bloomberg, but I'm still a little bit starstruck by Chris, just because he is such the real deal. So thank you, Congressman. I certainly appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you for all of you coming out on this terrible weather in January on the shore of the Hudson. This is a wonderful day, and I couldn't be more lucky to have the people here supporting me. So, I'm the seventh generation in my family to grow up in the Hudson Valley. That means for 7 generations, my family fished on the Hudson River. They hunted in our woods. They hiked in our paths. They raised the children, and they hoped the next generation would always be better off than the last. And they've done a good job. When I was a kid, my father actually with his siblings, all grew up about a half mile away from the house that they grew up in. And so every Sunday, 4 families worth of children would descend to my grandparents' house and have a spaghetti dinner and just ride bikes and live a wonderful, wonderful, idyllic life. And it was a great thing. My father was able to start a career here. He started as a beat reporter, and he worked his way up at a local paper, became the sports editor, the publisher, and ultimately became vice president of Gannett Company, which is a global media company. And he did all of this a half mile away from the house he grew up in. You know, he raised 4 children. We all went to public school, and he put us all through college. I don't know about you, but for me, that is exactly the way I would like to go through life. Raise my children right, save money to put them through school, and feel comfortable about their future so that the next generation does better than the last. But you know, the New York of my childhood is not the New York of today. You know, the New York of today is really a state in exodus. If you're a college grad, you're looking elsewhere beyond the borders of New York State for opportunity because you don't see it where you grew up. How many of you here know either your children or your friends' children that have moved south to South Carolina or the Florida or Texas to opportunity down there? If you're a young couple, say between the age of 24 and 35, and you have children, times are very tough here. I don't need to tell you. And this is actually the largest group in our population in New York State that is leaving, which what it creates now is our state is becoming older. We don't have as many children below the age of 18, and our economy is becoming more stressed as the needs of the elderly get put on the burdens of those paying taxes. And as this environment worsens, the reasons actually for staying in New York go out the window with them. But you and I know better. We know there's one reason to stay here. As you look around today on this fantastic day, you can see why. It's the quality of life here. It's the possibility of what we knew when we were growing up. New York does not need to be the worst state in the union for taxes. New York does not need to be the worst state in the union to be a small business owner. If our young people are going to stay here, if our young couples with their children are going to thrive, things need to change. And so when I head to Albany, with your support and your help, the first thing I'm going to do, and the goal ultimately is to turn things upside down. Because by turning things upside down, you're going to make things right. When things are heading so far in the wrong direction, as they are in Albany these days, and continue to, any step to turning that boat around is one step closer to home. And so when I go to Albany, I'm going to fight for the small business owner. I'm going to fight for the guy who's employing 10 people in his small business because he's the backbone of our future. I'm going to fight for those young couples with the small children who are really just trying to make ends meet and save for a better day. And I'm going to fight for that senior citizen who, after a life of sacrifice, after a life of hard work, is scared about their future. That's unconscionable, and it's a self-created wound. The people here know exactly what we need to do. Common sense tells us we know exactly what we need to do. We just need to get in there and do it together. So I'm going to ask you to support me on this, not just today, not in this special election, but when we get to Albany, and we're not there simply to shake hands and move on and status quo as usual. We need to turn this ship around. This is the best place in the world. You and I live in it. We know the possibilities. If you support me, we'll get there together, and I appreciate you being here. So thank you to all these wonderful public servants that are here, that are just putting their lives basically on hold in a lot of ways to help serve us. It really is a humbling experience to be here with them. And thank you for coming out today. I honestly mean it, and I appreciate it. I really look forward to working with you. So thank you.